Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to REUZEL Facebook Live. Today we have Nicholas Giberson from Pensacola, Florida. Nick, how you doing today?
Good, Curtis. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, Nick.
Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all over the world. My name is Nicholas Giberson. I'm a Scumbassador for REUZEL Pomade, and today we're going to be going over one of our haircuts known as the Scumbag Boogie. First thing I want you guys to do, down in that comment section, let me go ahead and know where you guys are from, where you're watching from, how you're doing, all that wonderful stuff. I want you guys to be as interactive as you can be. I know it's a little different. It's kind of weird, but we're going to have a good time today, I promise you. So like I said, we're going to do a Scumbag Boogie. And what I wanted to do today is I want to go over some of the tools that I'm using. The products, of course, we're going to be using REUZEL, and then we'll get over to our mannequin head over there. But before that, sorry, Luke. Just a little bit about me. So like I said, my name is Nicholas Giberson. I've been cutting hair for about 5 years now. Before I cut hair, I was in the military, and I was a military police officer. So you could say I've been getting piggy with it for a couple of years now. Not one to shy away from the lard or the smell of bacon fat, if you will. But being in the military, I like structures and systems. So what we're going to do today is we're going to break down how we actually cut hair and techniques and structures and systems that we use when we cut hair. But before that, let's get into our tools. So the tools I'm going to use today, I got a black Daveless FX with a fade blade. I got my silver FX. I got a gold skeleton FX trimmer. A little bit of a hand flipper action. I've been watching a lot of Peaky Blinders lately, so I've been inspired by some of that. Fun fact about that show, about Peaky Blinders, they actually used REUZEL on set for most of the show, and the hair and makeup artist on the show, she actually trained at the Old School in Rotterdam, so that's pretty cool as well. So I was inspired to pick up these hand flippers, so we'll use that. A couple guards that we'll use. I know it's kind of a little unorthodox to see us using guards a lot of the time, but it is hair cutting. So we're going to use a 1.5 or a wall clipper comb. The clipper comb, it's equivalent to a 1.5 as far as length on it. We're going to use a 1 guard, a half. It wouldn't be a Scumbag Boogie without using a flat topper. We're going to use that on top when we create our ramp shape. And then we also have a vented Denman brush and then a regular Denman as well. And then we also have a metal pick. And then I will have, I talked about the clipper comb. I also just have a regular styling comb for any scissor over comb or styling that we'll be doing. And then also my Mizutani Scorum Bloody Butcher Edition Scorum Masters, and then also my blenders. So we're gonna get into the haircutting. So my model today looks familiar. You might recognize him from other haircutting videos we've been doing this week. His twin brother couldn't make it, so this is actually Rick Johnson is here today. It's a pleasure to have him. And what we're gonna do, starting out this cut, and any cut that we do, first things first is we're gonna wet down the hair of our mannequin or the patron in your chair, right? Because anything the hair is gonna do with water, the hair will also do with product. Also, when I'm combing through the hair, I'm checking for any sort of inconsistencies. I'm checking for strange growth patterns. I'm checking for bumps, bruises, mumps, moles, anything that could get hit with a clipper or a comb. I'm checking out density around the hairline, around the ears. I'm checking for the natural recessions of the hairline. Anything a little funky, something out of place, something I need to keep in mind about what's going on with their hair. Because I'm not going to force their hair to do something that it doesn't want to do. So if his hair, a lot like my hair, if you check this out, my hair right here grows forward. So if I want to style my hair back, I need at least 2 or 3 inches on the side to actually get it to bend to what I want it to do. That's just stuff that you want to keep in mind when you're getting ready to do a haircut. So for our mannequin today, it's mannequin hair. It'll pretty much do whatever you want it to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and wet it down. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a part so I can set up my baseline. So a lot of the times they say, you gotta know the rules before you can break them, right? So what we do most of the time is that when we're creating our baselines and we start cutting on either the right or the left side. But what I'm gonna do today, inspired by my man Milky that works over at Scorum, he'll be on here in a few days doing a longer style haircut, he's inspired me to start doing Scumbag Boogies starting at the back to ensure that I have balance and symmetry in my haircut. The thing with a Scumbag Boogie haircut and how it's a little bit different than most of our other haircuts that you see on the posters that are all over the world, is that the Scumbag Boogie is an asymmetrical haircut, meaning one side is shorter than the other. If you look at our long trim pompadours, like on our banner right here, or if you look at any of our other longer hairstyles or just a regular pompadour, it's symmetrical because both sides are the same length. But with an asymmetrical haircut, one side is shorter than the other. So our Scumbag Boogie is an asymmetrical haircut, much like the executive contour. So I'm going to continue setting my parting here. And what I'm doing is I'm going from the natural recession and I'm following the head shape down and around to center back to create my part. So like I said, I'm gonna do it a little bit different because I'm starting in the back. Most of the time, if you've seen us cut before, if you watched any of the other live streams, you've seen most of us start on the right or the left side. I know last week Cheeseburger started in the back for his flat top pompadour that he did. So I'm gonna start in the back just to ensure that I have balance. Bring this thing around here. So following my head shape down and around the center. And I'm gonna show you a trick that you can do to make sure you find the proper parting placement every single time you do this, right? So what you're gonna do, just make sure my line is neat. So if you have a clean line, you're gonna have a clean part, which will ensure a clean cut. All right, so I'm gonna take 2 combs. This is just if you wanna check the placement of your part. You take 2 combs, right? 1 comb right here, parietal ridge right behind the ear, the flattest, squarest, widest part of the side of the head. So you're gonna take a comb right behind the ear, take your other comb off of the apex, the high point of the head, touch the tips, only the tips, and then that creates a square shape. Yes? Yes. So then you split it at 45, that's where your part's gonna be. And please, if you have any questions, you have anything, any comments or anything, drop it right there in that comment box. I got Curtis on the other end. He can read it to me and I can answer your questions. I wanna make sure you guys are heard. And actually, I'll ask you guys a question starting out. What are some of your favorite haircuts to do at your barbershop? What do you guys like to do when you're at home, when you're working? I know it's a little weird now, everybody's kind of quarantined, staying at home, but I think one of the biggest things I've been doing during this time of a quarantine, really, if that's what it is I've just been working on techniques and trying to learn some stuff and work on my own skills. All right, so I showed you how to find the parting on the side. Let's go to the back. Same idea as the side, except for now you come off the occipital. You come off the apex, touch the tips, you see your square shape. You split it, you're 45. So why a square shape, right? Why 90 degrees? Well, 90 degrees is what's considered a classic shape. So it's a nice classic shape. It's 90, it's gonna be square, right? We wanna maintain that squareness right here on the sides. But here's the catch, here's the kicker for the Scumbag Boogie, where this side is gonna be nice and square, our opposite side, our parting side, because say he has a crazy hair growth pattern like myself, this side is gonna be angled in like this. So if I'm pulling the hair out from the head shape at 90 degrees right here, it's gonna create more of a round shape opposed to pulling all the hair out right here being square and at 90 degrees. So our left side is gonna be canted in, creating more of a round shape. Our right side, non-parting side, is gonna be square. So let's begin with our cutting and creating our baseline, right? How's everybody doing out there? So far, so good? And as always, I want to practice proper sanitation. So even before I work on a mannequin, I'll still spray down my clippers with a clipper side to ensure that they're nice and clean and lubed up. So, so we're starting back here, right? A little different. Typically, we'd start right here, right behind the ear, because it's the squarest, flattest part of the head, and then move forward and then back, because I want to ensure symmetry first. I'm going to start right here. So right here being this corner right here. When we're in barber and beauty school, we're taught that you have 4 corners of the head, right? Corners of the head are your natural recession points up here, and then your corners back here. So I just recently, back in January, started teaching at my local barber college here, and I feel like that's helped me as far as trying to change how I teach a little bit. I went back to the fundamentals, and a lot of times I feel like we forget that as we progress in our careers a little bit. Sometimes you might forget what that bump in the back of the head is called, the occipital. You might forget about a parietal ridge or the temple or the round of the head or the apex. You might forget those terms. So it's actually been pretty cool to revisit all that and change how I approach haircutting just a little bit and change how I approach teaching as well. So let's go and create our baseline. So I'm going to go to this corner right behind the ear. Instead of starting right at the ear, I'm going to start in the corner behind the ear. I'm going to drop about an inch away from my parting, create my baseline. And a scumbag boogie is a really tight haircut. So I'm going to take my comb and lay the spine of the comb flat on the head. It's removing all of the hair, which would be equivalent to using a 1.5 guard. So whatever technique floats your boat, if you will, like if you're more familiar cutting with guards, that's the route you want to go. You're allowed to take that. I'm not here to tell you the way you cut hair is wrong. I'm just here to show you something different. So get in there with your comb, go to that corner, still pulling the hair out at 90 degrees, and you're going to cut. So we're starting to establish and create our baseline. So we start at the corner and we move to center back right here. And I want you to look at my comb position. I'm bracing the head with my pinky or my ring up. So my teeth are up and out. The hair is at 90 degrees. I'm going to cut. And doing a haircut like this, that's a fade, that's really, really short from going from something to nothing. It's actually a really great way to practice doing flipper over comb work. Because all this is going to get erased anyway, right? So it's a great opportunity to actually practice going in there and removing all that bulk if you're not super strong with flipper over comb work. So we've created our baseline back here. Now I'm going to move forward. And again, the base of the comb, the spine of the comb is flat on the head. And we'll continue moving forward, pulling this hair out at 90 degrees, hair coming up into the comb, teeth straight up, and we're going to cut. So I was saying before, so I spent 5 years in the Army, right? So I'm kind of a stickler for structures and systems. And I've had some of my students at the college ask, how do you even know how to do a haircut? Like, how do you know what you're doing? And it's all about having systems. One of the things I like to practice when I'm working day to day is if I know someone wants a skin fade or say a scumbag boogie, I know for me, my highest point is going to be the same as the 1.5 guard or flipper over comb, right? So then I know within that system, I'm going to go from my 1.5 or my flipper over comb down to skin. So that's a system of nothing to 1.5. That's at least closed, half guard, 1 guard, 1.5 guard, right? So that's 3 steps. So 2 guards, 3 different steps. That's how I'm going to work my system. So I know that I will hit the sides. I create a baseline. That's what we do in every single one of our haircuts, whether it's super tight and short or super long trim pompadour. Say if I have 3 to 4 inches on the side, or if I'm doing the scumbag boogie and it's really, really tight, I will always start with a baseline. And then I work down, and then I work down so I can build up my shape to right here. Because if you start at the bottom, and what I try to teach my students a lot of the time is that if you start at the top, you're going to save whatever you want, the hair you're going to work on. But if you're starting at the bottom, you go straight in ball from the bottom, you might push the hair up too far and you don't have any room to work. So I like using this technique because it allows me to have a security blanket of hair, if you will. That way I don't take too much off. So still going in and up, teeth straight up, 90 degrees. And we cut and remove the bulk. So I'm going to leave some of this just so you guys can see the hand flipper in action. Just something kind of cool to see. Like I said, I've been watching a lot of Peaky Blinders, so I've been inspired by that a lot lately. And now we're going to go to my opposite side and connect my baseline, and then we'll remove all the bulk from the bottom up. Sound good? Any questions or comments so far about a baseline, hair cutting techniques, or anything? All right, let's rock and roll. So we're going to go to our left side, which is going to be our parting side, right? I want to re-wet the hair of Rick Johnson here. And in my water bottle,
Nick, we have a question.
I do have a mixture of our hair tonic and a little bit of water. And what the hair tonic allows me to do is break down any sort of product that he might have walked into the shop, have that product in his hair. So this helps me break down any product in there. It smells good. It's a great way to start a conversation about buying product and get that conversation started. Every single person that sits in my chair, which is right over there, that's my chair over there. Every person that sits in my chair, the moment I spray this, they go, oh man, what's in that water bottle? Oh, it's our hair tonic. And then I explain this whole thing, and I even let them know, it's like, hey, it's a conversation starter. Now you're curious about product. That's something you can do. I like to use this a lot for, if we're doing hot towels with the shampoo bowl, take a little bit of this tonic, put it in the water for the hot towels. During the summer, being in Florida, it's really hot and humid and muggy. When we're actually outside and working, put this in the fridge, take a little bit of this, spritz it on top. It's like a nice, cool sensation. You can use that a lot of times for like scalp massages, for something real quick. At the beginning of your service.
Question.
That's something in here. So water bottle, hair tonic, it's great. I'm sure you guys do that at home. If you do, I want to know what you guys are doing at home. What are your techniques? What are your little tips and tricks you got at home on? All right, so my left side, same thing as before. I'm setting my part so I can connect my baseline. So a lot of the times when you're doing your baseline on your first side, you might be a little uneasy about it because you don't necessarily know where you're going. So what I like to do, I like to call my baseline for all my younger people out in the crowd. I like to refer to my baseline as my Waze app. It kind of tells me where I'm going. It's my Apple Maps view, it's my Waze app. The only thing it doesn't do is tell me where the cops are at. Boom. All right, so we're gonna take our parting, again, following the shape of the head, down and around, creating our parting. And if you've noticed, our baseline partings, or our partings for a baseline, essentially is just a horseshoe parting. However, a lot of the times we will drop our baseline down just a little bit to preserve some length here in the crown. So it's not exactly a traditional horseshoe parting as we drop down in the back and we create a little bit of a V, but while doing that might create a little bit of extra weight right here, we want that because we want that to connect to our ramp shape on top for our haircuts, because that's how you get all that wonderful shape in your haircuts, is you have a little bit of extra weight in your crown and you're saving it for later. If you take it off, you can't put it back on. So we have more of like a modified horseshoe parting, if you will. It drops down in the back just slightly. All right, so we got that, rocking and rolling, we're good to go. If you're doing something a little bit longer, your parting would go from the natural recession down and around. So I like to explain it to my students a lot of times, down and around, and you go to the opposite corner of the neck. So if you were to follow through, if this hair were long enough and it'll allow me to, I could take my parting and go all the way down and around to the opposite corner. But it's short, so it's not gonna do that. So, as I was saying, this is more like my Waze app, right? So, tilt this head down just a little bit. I can see where I left off over here. I'm gonna Make that a little clearer. I can see where I left off over here, right? Getting in there. So I know what I have to connect to continue my baseline down and around. So I'm gonna come over here, back to this corner. Again, it's a super tight haircut, so my comb will be flat on the head. I'm parallel to my part, so my comb is gonna be parallel to my part, mirroring my parting, nice and tight. And we're gonna cut. Teeth out. Come back over here. Now I'm going to connect the two right here in the back. Not a super drastic V right here, but you can see how these two sections come together a little bit. So you got a little bit of that bulk. It's fine. We'll take it out later. So we've connected the two. My roadmap is getting me to where I need to go. So I'm going to continue moving forward. Here's the kicker though on the Scumbag Boogie, right? We already talked about this a little bit. Instead of pulling out 90 degrees right here, keeping it square, I'm going to come in this way. So I'm going to go above the ear. My favorite thing about a Scumbag Boogie, once I learned how to do this, it was almost like an introduction to doing flat tops if you're not super familiar doing flat tops, because you get to use a flat top or comb. So it was kind of like a flat top light, if you will. If you're not ready for the heavy stuff yet with doing a full flat top, this is a nice introduction into using that tool to familiarize yourself with the same techniques that you would use for a flat top. So I've continued my guideline right here for my baseline. I'm going to move forward, pulling 90 degrees from the head shape right here. Now you see how the angle is different on the comb, yes? Now we're this way. If this were a person, I wouldn't brace my finger on his eyeball. Something you say. All right, wouldn't brace my finger on his eyeball, but we'll move in and around, creating that shape. So we've set up our baseline. I'll just go through real quick, make sure everything is the length I want it to, just a little bit of refinement. So we got our baseline. Any questions so far?
Nick.
This side square, this side is angled in, so it's a little bit rounder. So we've started our asymmetry. We've started our asymmetry. So now we're going to get into the next part, right? So now we're going to do our fade. So I know this hair is going to be a 1.5. So what I'm going to do, shigs, if you will, shigs and giggles. I'm going to take my hand flipper. I'm going to start balding out. I'll lock this first so Rick doesn't keep moving. And a Scumbag Boogie essentially is more of like a medium high fade that drops down by the occipital, right? Because you want to see that gradient in the haircut. You want to see that gradient in the fade, how it goes from nothing to something. On a mannequin, it's a little tougher to see it. But if you do this on a person, it's the same idea. So just for funsies, we're going to do a little bit of hand flipper action. Drop a comment in the chat room. Have you guys ever used any of these before? Have you ever seen them? I feel like it's something that every barber should at least own and then put on their wall at home. That's where this thing lives. I've never put this on an actual person. I won't do that. This thing's super old, but it's pretty cool. So you get in there and it's a process. I see why people wouldn't want to do this anymore, but it's fun, something different. It's actually, we had a barber, I believe it was Willie Morales on the Project X DVD, use one of these as for his haircut that he's got on the Project X video. And if you're interested in seeing the Project X demos, I would highly suggest checking them out on the REUZEL Pomade website. It's pretty interesting. And I believe all the money that they were raising from that, the project was helping students of hair, barbering, and cosmetology that wanted to go to school, it was letting them have access to those programs over in Rotterdam, I believe. So still going through.
Nick.
I've got my second line right here. I'm gonna spin them around. And typically my rule of thumb is when I'm doing fades, I either stay below the occipital or above the occipital. I'm gonna stay right below for this one, and I'm gonna fade everything up and out. I'm only gonna use the hand flipper for half the head because this is not the most ideal way of cutting hair. But again, I need a late pass because I just started watching Peaky Blinders. Yeah, I think this stuff is cool, so I might as well do it. It's like butter, it just cuts right through it.
Nick, can you hear me, buddy?
Yes, sir.
I got a question for you.
What's the question?
Give me 1 sec. Let me scroll back
All
up here. I don't think you heard me earlier when I tried to chime in, but it's all good. We're dealing with the internet.
Yeah,
today.
I didn't hear you.
When you're doing clipper over comb, are you working with your blade open or with it closed?
So my blade is closed when I'm doing clipper over comb. Not to say you can't do it open, it's just gonna remove less hair. It's not a bad technique to use if you're starting to learn clipper over comb. Actually, we took a class here at the barbershop one day where the instructor came in and we did open clipper over comb. And it's a different texture. It's not as hard as a line. It's a little bit softer. It was a different technique. I've never really done that a whole lot, but I'm a little more well-versed in clipper over comb work. But that doesn't mean that if you aren't, you shouldn't try it. I'm definitely a proponent of believing in like, hey, try something new. Like if it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't. Like it's up to you to kind of navigate what you like and don't like in the industry. Like I don't do color. It's not my favorite thing. I stick with hair cutting because it's what I love, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do color if you're a barber and you want to get into that world. So try it out. There's nothing wrong with it. Try it out.
Great question.
All right, I've had enough of this. So we're going to go to regular clipper.
Nick, we'll let you continue with your haircut there, and we'll come back with questions in a little bit.
All right, yeah, sounds good, Curtis. Again, if you have any questions, comments, anything so far, feel free to drop them. Curtis will get them to me, and I will answer them as best as I can. So I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. Flipper over comb, closed. So you can see where we're kind of starting. We're dropping down here a little bit over here. You can see how that hand flipper is not the cleanest, but it's all right. So this is what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna start my other side, right? So I'm gonna spin old Rick around here. And something I'm going to do is I'm going to raise him up a little bit. What I like to preach in my class a lot of the times is you need to bring the client to your workspace. And what I mean by that is my workspace where I'm cutting is generally from my belly button up to my collarbone. So I'm working in this square. And what that helps me do is it helps me maintain a square body positioning. That way I'm not cranking my elbows way up here, ruining my shoulders. So I'm only gonna do this for like 5 more years. Or I'm not hunched over trying to like cut hair down here. You bring the client up into your workspace. So it's a little bit easier on your body and that helps you maintain a square body position. And I know I'm talking about all this stuff about square body position, but I'm teaching. Luna's running around here trying to get all these really awesome angles for you guys. So just know that if I was in the shop and I was really doing this, I'd be having all the same proper body positionings that I'm talking about. So I'm gonna wet this hair down. I'm gonna move the top out of the way. Just to ensure that I don't cut any of it. And what I'm doing now is I'm looking in the mirror and I'm checking for balance as far as where I want to set my fade to go. And it took me, for some reason, it took me going to Rotterdam and going to the old school and having Rob, Bloody Butcher, say this in his demo class, that instead of trying to set a fade and like figure out where their lines go in, like pulling out like all kinds of rulers and square meters and like, what was that old compass, pulling out all these compasses to try to figure out balance for a haircut. Man, just turn the client in the mirror, look to see where their line is, and then create the balance that way. It's so much easier than pulling out all your protractors and all your crazy tools and implements trying to create like a straight fade line. So I see where I need to be. It's right above his eyebrow right there. So on this side, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna come up, close clipper, around the ear. He must do jujitsu because his ear is super, oh, it's actually kind of flimsy. His cartilage is real tough. It's one thing, we get a lot of that for some reason. We get a lot of like the former Brazilian jiu-jitsu dudes that come in here are still training and their ears are like, it's the worst, trying to maneuver that around. But it's all right. So I got my fade line where I'm starting. Again, talked about the roadmap, my Waze app, right? This fade line is the same thing that my baseline was, down and around to right here. I'm bringing my fade down and around over here. And I know trust me, I completely understand that like watching somebody fade isn't the most exciting thing, especially if you're a barber. But it's not that this is boring hair. It's just tedious work. It's fun. It takes a lot of skill, and it's technically like it's kind of difficult sometimes, but it's just not the most like, I want to say enamoring. I don't think that's the right word, but it's not the most like, oh man, this is really cool watching this guy do this. I understand that. The fun stuff's about to happen, trust me. So it's not that it's boring here. It's just kind of tedious. I just want to let you guys know that. So the fun stuff is coming. It's all fun to me personally, but here's what it is. All right, coming down and around. And now we're going to connect to our center. We're going to come up. We're going to C-scoop out. And drop a comment in the chat. Like, let me know how you do your fades. Do you start from the bottom? Do you start from the top? Like, what's your approach to doing a fade? I know it's different for everybody. There's no wrong way. Honestly, a lot of the times, I believe the hair dictates what I'm doing. That's one of the things like back in the military, right? Like you could run a mission while you're deployed and you could have a plan for how you're going to approach this certain mission or whatever you're doing. And it can completely get tossed up on side of its head because something goes awry, right? Same thing with haircutting. I could say I know how I'm going to cut this hair with all the techniques I know. I think I might go in from the bottom up, but he might have like crazy fine hair. And if he does that, then I might want to assess it a little bit differently or come in a different way. So I let the hair dictate what I'm doing at every moment. I'm just debulking some of this because it's still kind of heavy so I can see where I'm going. All right, I'm just gonna clean this up. I'll check for balance. It looks all right. All right, cool, so the next step. So just recap real quick. We debulked everything with our clipper over comb or your 1.5. We've set our bald line with the closed clipper. So now my next step is I'm gonna open my clipper up. I'm gonna take my lever here. I'm gonna go from closed to open. And the reason I like Babeless clippers is all these little indent marks right there. In the past, as I was learning how to fade and as I was growing as a barber, you just kind of throw your lever all willy-nilly if you don't have a pair of these clippers. And now that I know where I'm actually locking them into, it makes my fade so much cleaner. I'm getting this on a mannequin. It'll look as good as it can on a mannequin. I'm not trying to enter a blurry fade contest or anything, but that's what we got, so it'll work. All right, so my next step, I'm gonna open my clipper all the way up. So you see, open, closed, open, and I'm gonna jump about a 1/2 inch above where my bald line is. Same thing before, my C-shaped scoop out and up. And what my C shape does, it creates that graduation in that haircut. So it's gonna start creating that blend. What I like to do here at the barbershop is a lot of times after I'm doing my fade work and after I cut my hair, I'll go to the shampoo bowl, I'll rinse them off, and then any hair, I like to call it hair dirt, any hair that's stuck to the head, even after brushing it, will disappear. So you can actually see how clean your fade is. So I'll use a brush on a person, see what I got going on, and then I'll just shampoo them towards the end. And then if I gotta do any refinement, any finishing work, I'll do that after I blow dry, before I style. Again, with the Scumbag Boogie, we're talking asymmetry. So everything is nice and symmetrical up to this point, minus my left side. We're coming in, the flick of the wrist, cue my music DJ, going down and around. And instead of continuing around, I will then turn my chair for my mannequin, my client, if you will, and then I'll work from here down to my fade line here. However, Scumbag Boogie, asymmetrical, right? I'm actually going to remove all of this hair right here. So open clipper. Let me see a hands up emoji if you ever have those clients that sit in your chair that have that crazy hairline that goes out into the middle of their forehead. So go ahead and throw those up if you got them. I know I do every once in a while. Best way I can combat that is doing a similar technique to this haircut with the flipper over comb work over here. If they don't want a hard part all the way over, I just reduce that bulk all the way down, doing the same technique that I showed you at the beginning of this haircut. So we're flicking in there. So I know I talked about all the tools that I was using for this haircut, but there are 3 other tools that I use every day in the barbershop. My chair, I'm gonna spin my chair, that way I'm not gonna walk around my chair constantly like doing this, doing the cha-cha slide, slipping all over hair. I'm gonna move that chair around, that way, again, to preserve my body, so I'm doing this a little bit longer. My lighting, you wanna have good lighting. I picked this chair window, so I have the best lighting. Typically I'll work with a ring light too, just as the sun goes down in the shop. And then my 3rd extra tool is gonna be a mirror, of course. Like, how hard is it to cut hair without a mirror? All right, I see where I'm going, see where I'm coming from. Just gonna flick into it. Almost there. All right, so this next step changed my life. I don't know if I just wasn't going to the right classes, if I was missing something, if it wasn't taught to me when I was in school. So now I then teach this technique to my students so that they have more than I did when I was in school. After you're closed, after you're open, the in-between, right? The in you normally see on a person, don't necessarily see on a mannequin. The in-between step, I close my flipper halfway. It's almost so simple. It's just so simple. Like I never knew about it. The other day, Cheeseburger posted something. He held a piece of paper that said, "Kiss, keep it simple, silly." It's not how I know it as. I'll call it this. I'll one up him a little bit. Keep it simple, scumbags. Throw it to the half. And in between the half, you're gonna work that line, if there is a line, in between your closed and your open flipper position. Not much on the mannequin because the hairs are so spread out, you can't really see it. But no, on a person, you go in with that closed, you're gonna create a weight line. This is how you remove it. So come in. Doing short stroke movements to blend out any weight line. Had I used a guard at the beginning, I would have done a little bit longer stroke movement. I picked this up from some of the Babyless crew, Vinny, Frank the Barber, those guys. They talk about this a lot of the times when they're teaching. If they're doing fading work, look at if it's a handshake. When you're handshaking someone, you're meeting them for the first time. If you want to remove a lot of that weight, nice big handshake, right? And then if it's like a real quick, like a blending technique, oh yeah, hey, how you doing? Like that's how I like to think about it when I'm doing fade sometimes. So real quick movement, knock at any of that line that might be between the open and the close, and just keep trucking along here. Again, moving all that hair out of the way, halfway. All right, when that's done, so the next step for me, for our Scumbag Boogie, we're gonna take our one guard. The one guard is gonna leave the hair approximately 1/8 of an inch. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take my one guard, I'm gonna open it up, I'm gonna flick up into my baseline. Because this was a 1.5 guard equivalent, opening this up, that would naturally just go right into what the 1.5 guard would be. However, when you do this, you're gonna create a little bit of weight. It's fine, you can go back through it and flip or overcomb it, knock it out. So any ridge or any shelf that you might create by flicking out and doing this, it's fine, we'll get it taken care of. So again, open up your one guard. And on this side, we wanna keep it square, so I'm not going in too crazy right here. And something that I actually love to teach, something that we offer at REUZEL, that if you're purchasing REUZEL, you love it, you got to have more of it. Talk to your distributor and ask for our cutting classes. We actually go to barbershops and salons and schools, and we teach this haircut live, so you get a one-on-1, 1-on-10, or whatever the situation might be. Some of us ambassadors worldwide will come out to you and we'll teach you this haircut. You get a mannequin head, you get to work on it yourself, you get to hone your techniques. There's nothing better than actual hands-on training. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to your distributors or whomsoever you have in your area and say, hey, I want the barbering 1 class, because then that leads the barbering 2. And there's so many other classes that we have and that we're developing for you guys to get hands-on education. So I definitely reach out to them and ask about it. So again, one open, just flicking up into our baseline. You can see that weight line starting to disappear. Still one open. This side's a little bit higher. Again, I'm talking asymmetry. It's intentional. Now, say the model or your patron in your chair, they don't necessarily want as drastic of weight removal right here. It's okay. You don't have to take it and make it true to the posters. You can modify, adjust, do whatever you want and create what you want to create within your haircuts according to what your client actually wants. So it's absolutely okay to do that. I've had this haircut. One of our Scumbassadors, Michael Martin, he gave me this haircut in Birmingham one time. And it was because of my hair growth pattern. Like my growth is kind of wild. A lot of people say I don't have the greatest hair to cut, even though it's a joke. My hair is beautiful. It's a little tough sometimes. So this is just technique to use if you have those crazy growth patterns. All right, once we're done with the one open, we close it up. And a little bit of that heavy weight line right here, as you can see, we're gonna remove that. Coming all the way up to the natural recession right here. And I have found that this haircut works extremely well on wavy hair. There's just something about it that once you get into the next step that we're about to go into after we're done with this fade, once you put a flat topper on wavy hair and you set it in the place with product, It's just so amazing. It's so beautiful. Actually, I've taught down in Puerto Rico quite a few times. I've been lucky enough to have that opportunity for REUZEL. And every time I go down there, all my models, shout out to Puerto Rico REUZEL team. They find the best models now with the best hair, and every single haircut, it looks like I'm way better than I really am whenever I cut their hair. But I had the opportunity to do a Scumbag Boogie and do a barbering tooth blast down there the last time I was there, and their hair it was perfect. Such good hair. I was so happy with how it turned out. All right, so still working back this way. In a barbershop, if I'm not normally teaching, what I like to do is just keep that chair moving. So it's not necessarily a typewriter. Like I'm not starting here and going, stopping and then resetting and get your next level. I oftentimes will keep the chair moving, knock out that fade. Once I make sure my lines are nice and tight, knock out my fade, and we're good to go. So with the way I do my fades, like I said, I kind of jump all over as far as techniques, right? Like I can work top down, I can work bottom up, I can do skip guard. And the way we cut our techniques most of the time are from the top down. Again, I said that because we want to save, we want to preserve some of that weight. So now I'm working from underneath my one into my one. I'm going to take my half guard. I'm going to open it up, open lever, half guard, blends right into my one guard very nicely. And we're just going to flick in there and remove that weight. How are we doing on time?
We're doing good, Nick. You're about 50 minutes in.
All right, let's finish it up here. I'm talking a lot. All right, so we're done with our fade. Next step, right here. I'll wet them down. So according to our poster, a Scumbag Boogie will often have a hard part. I'm not gonna do a hard part on our mannequin just because it doesn't look the best, but you can place your hard part from your natural recession, from your parting side, whichever way you decide to part the hair. I'm not doing one. It's just not my favorite thing, but we'll wet the hair down. So now we're getting to the next step, right? The flat topper. So take my flat topper. I'm gonna comb from the front. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a great way to start getting familiar with the tools that you would use to create a flat top haircut. I'm gonna come in from the front, checking my angle. I like to do it this way in a mirror so I can see what I'm doing. So I turn them so you can see them in the mirror. And it's the same idea as if you're cutting from short to long, creating a ram shape, right? So shorter towards the crown, longer up front. So I turn them in the side so I can see what my ramp shape is gonna be. I'll bring them back. And you're gonna cut from left to right or right to left across the flat topper, going north to south, if you will, won't quite cut it. And I always start in the center. My guide is above me. I'm working down and back. And I'm working back down here to where my corner is gonna be. So once I have my guideline down my center, I pick up my left, I see my guide, I cut. I'm going to come right, cut the center. We like to consider everything we do before a blow dry more of a rough cut. So it's not going to be perfect. There might be, that's okay. We're going to take care of it after we blow dry here. Remove some weight with our blenders. Clean it up a little bit more with our clippers, and we'll be golden. Let's come back. All right, so our flat topper work is done. One more thing before we get in the blow dry. So I'm going to comb all my hair from left to right. You have a whole lot of disconnection going on your right side. So we're going to comb everything over. And as you can see, got a little bit of disconnection in there, right? Disconnection being the super long hair on top of that short hair. So I'm going to blend everything real quick, clipper over comb. So turn our head, combing everything over to this corner. And then there's a little bit of pokey outy going on over here. So we'll connect all this. Okay, anything too crazy weight-wise, we'll get rid of it here after we blow dry, and then we're gonna stop. Got a little bit of disconnection right there still, so I wanna connect it, bring it in. I don't want that much disconnection. That looks good. All right, cool. So now we're getting the blow dry products, right? So my favorite products to use for a Scumbag Boogie, keep it true, keep it classic, keep it greasy. Products we're gonna use are our heavy grease pink, heaviest hold that we have that isn't water soluble. Smells good. I absolutely love it, especially the humid hot summers here in Florida. This is my go-to for styling for heat and humidity. I'm gonna top it because you can cocktail everything together, and that's why we made them. We made them all to work together, work well. So I'm gonna use the blue, strong hold, water soluble pomade, high shine to add a little more shine to my pink. But before all of that, the liquid gold, the grooming tonic. It acts as a pre-styling thermal protectant, so I'm not gonna damage the cuticle of the hair while I'm blow drying. A lot of the time, barbers are not necessarily taught how to blow dry. So if you're getting familiar with it, it's a great product to have so you're not damaging the hair of your client. And this also acts as a volumizer and gives you a little bit of, I think of it as more like a memory foam for hair. Once you blow dry a style in, it kind of remembers it a little bit. It's a great product for that. So I'm gonna take my grooming tonic, put it in my hand, and to quote the great Cheeseburger Eddie, I flip the drip. If it drips, you got too much. When I apply the product, I'm gonna work from scalp to ends, putting the grooming tonic all over, just making sure it's in there. And now when I blow dry, it's gonna be loud, so I'm not gonna be able to talk so much. So when I blow dry, just to break it down real quick, I'm gonna start in the back, I'm gonna move forward, and I'm gonna blow dry my part in all this hair over this way. Basically everything's going over to the right. Blow dry that in. While I'm blow drying, I want you guys to drop in the comments what your favorite products that we have are. We have a bunch of new stuff coming out. We just released a fiber cream with one of my favorite new products, medium hold fiber in it in the cream. It's great, no shine. It's a matte product, it's awesome. I love it, subtle rum scent, and it's awesome. We've actually been putting out a couple different type creams and fiber-based products that are awesome, and I really love them, and you should check them out as well. The bummer about this whole quarantine thing for me is they were supposed to drop on April 1st, and we went on quarantine on May 20th, or at least we shut down our shop here on May 20th. So I was like, man, I was really looking forward to getting this product in and working with it on actual people, but it is what it is. All right, so we're gonna blow dry real quick. Let me know what kind of pomades, what products you like, what your favorite products are. If you use the grooming tonic, speaking of the grooming tonic, I brought this up here to talk about it, but something that I recommend to all my clients is that they take home the spray grooming tonic because it's a little bit easier to use at home than, say, the hair tonic. It's not as heavy, it's not as oily, and a couple of pumps of this right when you get out of the shower, towel dry, you can set it and forget it, or you can use it to blow dry your hair into a shape as well. I know a lot of our Scumbassadors have been at home filming themselves, how they style their hair at home. Check all that out on the REUZEL Education Instagram page. We're dropping all kinds of tips and tricks to help you guys while you're at home, and the information you can take and then tell your client in your hometowns as far as how they can style their hair. So we're gonna get the blow drying. My blow dryer settings are gonna be high speed, medium heat, because I don't wanna burn them. Because I want the air to go through my brush instead of split as it would do on a regular Denman. So it's gonna allow the hair to dry faster. I'm gonna flip it around. When I flip my blow dryer, I'm gonna change hands. When I change sides, I change hands. Still starting at the back. Starting at the back and moving forward. Checking for any sort of dampness maybe left over from the grooming tonic. If you are cutting on mannequins and using the grooming tonic at home during this time, be careful not to use too much because the mannequin hair doesn't really agree with it. It makes it really tough to blow dry into shape and style, and to get a comb through it for blending out weight. So next step, real quick, not gonna take up too much more of your time. I'm probably going over a little bit. I get to talking and I don't stop, but it's all important information. So you're gonna take your comb, same shape that we created the ramp when we went through the flat topper, same idea right now. I'm looking for anything that might be a little heavy, and oftentimes for my Scumbag Boogies, it's gonna be my parting side. But you just come through, you hit up any hair that might be too heavy. And this part of the haircut, any sort of weight removal, any sort of texture that you're adding to a haircut, this is the part of the haircut that really personalizes the haircut and creates your signature haircut for your client patron at home. So take out as much weight as you feel necessary. There's no real guidelines as far as how to do it. If it seems heavy, it's probably heavy, take it out. A lot of people, a lot of clients are afraid of these because they've had a bad experience with these. Maybe someone bashed them with the thinners, if you will. And that's not necessarily the best like vernacular vocabulary when describing these techniques, but it's your job as the barber or stylist to educate them on techniques you're using and what would be best for their hair, because after all, you are the professional. All right, so any more weight we see. And I'm combing the hair over to where it's gonna lie, but I'm also combing it back I can see any weight right here. There's some weight right here, so I'll take that out. And when you're doing bulk removal, you're removing weight, you don't ever want to go on scalp because you're going to create a hole. So all I'm doing is hitting about the hair at about mid shaft, taking out any weight that might be there. You don't have to do the entire haircut again. With these, just where you see either remove weight. All right, once weight removal is done, use the heaviest holding hog in the pig pen, our pink heavy grease, about a knuckle. Typically, Carrie, don't get mad at me for this. Typically, I would use 2 fingers, 2 knuckles worth of pink, but because I'm gonna mash it up with the blue, the stronghold, I'm only use 1 for now. If you wanna be nice to your client at home, I'd recommend putting on a water-soluble product first and then topping it with the grease afterwards. What that does, and to my understanding what that does, is that once you break through the grease pomade with your degreasing trio, the water rinses out of the hair cuticle a little bit easier because of the water-soluble pomade. So definitely recommend putting on a water-soluble first and then topping it with the grease. But for me today, because I'm using a mannequin, I'm gonna top with the grease first. I prefer a grease if I'm doing these plastics because they're so much more malleable to me, in my opinion, than say our water-soluble stuff. Like I can just shape it. There's something different about using a grease-based pomade. It's kind of magical, if you will. Magical and malleable. So I took my knuckle, I emulsified it, I covered my hands in it, a little bit of my fingertips too, because I'm gonna comb through my fingers as well. And you basically work from scalp to ends, from the crown up forward, and then on the outside. So again, I wanna make sure the hair is coated in pomade, because hair with pomade will make it really sticky and stick to other hair with pomade on it. Fun tip, if you are using grease-based pomades, the hair tonic, take a little bit of the hair tonic, pour it in your hand, spin it around, pass it down, wipe it off. It's like you never had grease pomade on your hand. So that's something you can do at your shop if you are using grease-based products. So now the topper, knuckle full of Stronghold Blue. One of the great things about mashing up and mixing up all of your products together is that all of the scents work well together too. So a lot of the times your patron at home will want to buy the product and recreate the same scent at home. And there's just something about that pink. The pink smells so good. It's actually in a candle form too. I don't know if you have it where you're at, but that's something you could ask for. I love that. I love that candle. Every time we get at the shop, I at least buy like 1,700 of them. All right, so we're just topping the pink with the blue. Now we're gonna comb through it with a tool that I find absolutely essential, that if you are working with grease-based pomades, a metal hair pick right here. Check that out. Metal pick. What it's gonna do is gonna allow you to cut through the product that much easier. And as I'm finishing up this style, checking out this mannequin, styling them up, making sure everything looks good with our finished look. If you have any questions about what we've discussed today, what we've been doing, feel free to drop them below. We'll do a little bit of a Q&A if we have some time. Be sure to tune back in with us on Friday. Great friend of mine, an amazing educator, Paul Dunning. He's going to be here on Friday. He actually coined something that I use quite often, talking about the versatility and variability of our products. It doesn't matter if you have super short hair or very, very long hair. Doesn't matter if you're male, female, or what so have you. Our products are great for just about everybody. They're great for everybody, not just about everybody. They're great for everybody. Definitely worth taking home. check him out on Friday. And then something I like to say about REUZEL is when you bring REUZEL into your barbershop and into your salon or wherever you work, you're not just bringing in a brand of products. You're bringing in a company that is rooted in DIY ethics, from skateboarding up to rock and roll. Robin Lane started this in the kitchen of Scorum, and it's evolved into what it is today. So as haircuts are evolving and trends are kind of evolving, we're staying on trend as well and evolving with it. So we're almost finished here. And when I'm styling this, same direction, I was kind of blow drying it in. Let me pull this out so you can actually see our ramp shape here. Scumbag Boogies are a little tougher on mannequins because they're designed to be cut to the head shape of the person in the chair. But it's all about learning the techniques and making sure that you're like learning the systems and you learn how to do the haircuts. Oftentimes I'll view haircuts like Pokemon. I never played Pokemon, but it's like, if you learn how to do that haircut, you can always do that haircut. That's kind of how I look at it. One last thing to finish it off style-wise, take my styling comb. I pulled everything through with the grease. I'm just gonna style it into place, set it into place.
Great job, Nick.
And there you have it. That's a Scumbag Boogie. I hope you guys have gotten something from this. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. We look forward to seeing you Friday at 12 Central US time, whatever time it is your time. Feel free to check us out on Friday. I appreciate you guys having me so much. Shout out, thanks to my whole REUZEL family and team for allowing me to do this today. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Stay well, stay healthy,
Nick,
and we'll see you later.
Nick, let's do some questions, bud.
All right, just kidding. We're going to do some questions.
Anybody have any questions for Nick in the comments, please post them and we'll be sure to answer your questions now.
I'm just going to keep doodling and styling because that's what I...
Yeah, let's see a close-up, Nick. Let's get all around.
All around close-up. Give her a whirl. So just kind of recap the haircut while you guys are thinking of your questions. We started with a baseline in the back, which is a little unorthodox for how we normally teach, but once you know the rules, you can break them. Creating balance and symmetry in our haircut back here. Once we set up our baseline, we work from this bottom up, faded out our weight lines. We took our flat topper to the top of the head to create that scroundness, if you will, that square roundness at the top, creating your ramp shape, and then combing everything off to the side. And then we took out some weight, styled it up with the grooming tonic, the heavy hold pink, and the strong hold blue. Any questions at all, feel free to let us know right now.
Nick, we got a question for you from Scott. He says, do you use the blue hair tonic? I would have to say you do use the blue hair tonic. And when do you use the blue hair tonic?
I absolutely use the blue hair tonic. I put it in my water bottle. I use it to remove the grease from my hands after applying it to my mannequin and to my patrons daily. It's something honestly, I can't live without it. It's actually a routine every morning in the barbershop. Everybody fills up their water bottles. They go over to the sink. They grab the blue tonic. We fill up our bottles. And that's something that's part of our daily ritual. It's pretty much what we do every single day. If we're running low on something else that we make hot towels with, we'll put the hair tonic in the hot towel water as well. I've even considered maybe putting it into a diffuser, but I'm going to check before I get real crazy with that and see if I can do that. But yeah, absolutely. Something I can't work without, honestly. And most of actually all the products are something that I could not do my job without having these products. So it's definitely something I would like look into if you haven't already.
Great answer, Nick. Scott, I hope we answered your question, buddy. Any other questions? If there are any other questions, we're going to end this live for today. I'll give you just another minute for any other questions. We do have one from Miss Stephanie. Do you get the pink off your hands if you don't have the blue hair tonic? How do you get the pink off of your hands?
So to get the pink off my hands, if I don't have the hair tonic, I will go to the shampoo bowl and I could use the green scrub shampoo, which we have on our back bar. I use the scrub shampoo in conjunction with the daily conditioner. And here's one of the other kickers, the astringent foam right here. If you use this, this will also help remove anything off of your hands.
Stephanie, I hope we answered your question. We have another question from Scott, Nick. Scott asks, what is the ratio that you use for your blue hair tonic?
I go about 80% water, 20% hair tonic. And be sure when you, if you use your water bottle up every night or every day, make sure that you are rinsing out your water bottle with as hot as you can possibly get, hot water, and spray a few times to help remove any other product that might be hanging around in your sprayer. Because oftentimes I'll find my water bottle might be clogged, and that's because I haven't cleaned it. So it's not a product fault, it's usually user error, but make sure you do that as well.
All right, Nick, this will be the last question, and then we'll end up for today. Dustin Jones says, I don't know if this has been said, but what got you into barbering?
So what got me into barbering? Like I said a couple of times, I used to be in the military, and one of my favorite things about while I was in, I used to go to a barbershop every 2 weeks is what we had to do. And during that time sitting at the barbershop, whether it's for 30 or 45 minutes a day, or a session, that was 30 to 45 minutes that I didn't have to think about being in the military. I just got to hang out, I just got to be myself, just be a normal dude, and there's a chance and an opportunity to relax. And I wanted to give that back to the people in my town. Because I came back to Pensacola, Florida, it's a Navy town. I wanted to provide that same service to people in my city, and I feel like we accomplished that pretty well. And it's a creative outlet. Before I was ever in the military, I was in touring bands and I played all over the US. So it's kind of that same thing. I just had this unscratchable itch to create. And as I have found during this quarantine, that cutting hair allows me to scratch that itch. It keeps me busy, it keeps me creative, gives me something to do, and it provides money in my pocket, and I make people feel good. So that's why I got into it. I want to make people feel good about themselves, because I'm sure everybody in here knows the power of a good haircut. If you give somebody a good haircut, nothing else really matters. They feel good about themselves. So we're selling confidence. We're not just doing haircuts. It's pretty cool.
Awesome, Nick. Thanks so much, buddy. I want to thank everybody for coming out today and tuning into our live. We'll see you again on Friday with Mr. Paul Dunning. Paul Dunning will be with us at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please check your local listings. You can also Google. She happens to know the time all around the world. I want to again thank y'all for tuning in today. We appreciate y'all, and we will see you again on Friday.